get started here. Let me kick us off with some prayer and then start. Father God, thank you. Thank you for tonight. Father, thank you for the work that you are doing in Africa and in Rwanda. Father, thank you for the opportunity that we got to go and join you in what you're doing there. You're doing mighty, mighty work there. And it's a great honor to join you and to be able to see how you're working with the Rwandan people and through the Rwandan people and how they can speak to us as Americans. And so, Father, just lift this time up as we recap our trip and show your glory. And we did it for your glory and your glory only. Those things we ask in Christ's name. Amen. So I will get us kicked off here. You'll hear from all of us at different points and different things, and go from there. So, why did we choose Rwanda? Why did we choose the country of Africa? Well, it's pretty simple. I used to go and serve at a church in Loveland before we moved up here to Wellington. And I served with Kaylee Gonzagua. And she met John on a missions trip and eventually fell in love with him and eventually moved to Rwanda. And a promise I made to her was that I would go visit her. And then as I learned more about what Arise Rwanda does in Rwanda, it made me want to not only go visit her, but to go on mission to Rwanda. And so through a little bit of challenges and we eventually made it. We delayed it a year, and I think that was God ordained, simply because the rest of this group, along with our family, was able to go. And so, why Arise Rwanda? They are doing amazing things, and so you'll see some of the amazing things that they're doing, and the amazing things that we got to do. I won't steal Andre's thunder, but the country is healing probably faster than you could ever imagine a country healing after what they dealt with in 1994. And so it was awe-inspiring to see, and just the healing that's actually being done there. And so that's why Arise Rwanda, that's why we picked, took over Rwanda. And then that's pretty much how that looks. And so it's an amazing, beautiful country and an amazing, beautiful people, and it serves the same three principles I do. They love cows, they love their country. What was the third one? God, sorry. I always start with cows, and I should start with God. That's why it always throws me off. So, with that being said, I'm gonna. Andre's gonna kick us off next. So.
Yeah, thank you everyone for coming. What I'm going to start talking about is the genocide that took place in Rwanda. It's definitely a shaping thing that happened, rightfully so. We felt like as a team we were very fortunate to how our trip took place, that when we arrived and then eventually we went to the natural preserve or the safari and had fun doing that. And then eventually going to the Rwandan Genocide Museum. But we drove around the country quite a bit. It's obviously not that big of a country. So we drove to the east side of the country where the nature preserve was. And that just really kind of gave us a feel of just the people, the culture, just the landscape. Beautiful country, just really green, really lush, lots of farming. And then after that we came back to Kigali and that's where the Genocide Museum was. And that was very hard for all of us to walk through, very heavy. And yeah, I just have some facts, or I guess just some of the history of it, and this was what we learned about with the genocide. So for centuries, Rwanda was mainly, it's comprised of the Hutus, so it's two kind of, it's not nationalities, but kind of just their heritage, where they came from. There's the Hutus and the Tutsis. The Hutus are 85% of the population, and the Tutsis are 14%. And for centuries, they lived in harmony with one another. And then colonization happened. I think that happened in the late 1800s, where the Germans and the Belgians kind of took control of the country. And at that point, they created, or not created, but everyone had like identification, and it put everyone into classifications, if you're a Hutu or a Tutsi. So that kind of just started this segregation of the people. Just really, that's like, was your class of people. They were Rwandans. They kind of identified with their class. And then after in 1962, they gained independence, and that really fueled the fire, because then at that point, the Hutu-led government, they started ramping up their kind of hatred towards the minority group of the Tutsis. And then there was a lot of propaganda going on in the country. There was on the radios and on the TVs, that was, again, primarily from the Hutus, calling the Tutsis cockroaches, just that they're lesser of people, a threat to just the country, and really just started sowing the seeds that something needs to be done with the Tutsi population. And then in 1994, it all really kicked off when the existing president's, his plane or helicopter was shot down, and they blamed the Tutsis, and that kind of gave the Hutus a reason to attack. And then and leading up to that point, they were already doing military training. They were preparing for this attack. It wasn't just, out of nowhere. It was something that was, they were preparing for. And then so in 1994, the genocide actually happened. They estimated in 100 days, roughly 800,000 to 1 million of the Tutsis were killed, often by their neighbors, with machetes, clubs. And walking through the Genocide Museum, it was hard, because they didn't shy away from just the stories, images, the testimonies, and just hearing from these individuals. Because again, remember, it's 1990, that's 30 years ago, so that it's this generation of people who lived through it. And then so it just was chaos in the country through there. Eventually, in 1994, so about 3 years later, the current president led the Tutsis, and they were able to kind of take back the capital city. And eventually the genocide started to subside, but the country was in ruins. And as Jamie alluded to, the beautiful thing was the country didn't, in order to rebuild, they wanted to bring justice to those, the perpetrators and those who committed these crimes, but they wanted to do it in a way that wasn't just bombarding the jail system. They really wanted to bring restoration to the country. So they started things such as, they had these different courts that were set up that almost like tribal or community courts, and it really just brought more forgiveness, healing, and it was just more it wasn't just trying to again, punish. It was in an attempt to bring restoration to the country itself. So as we continued on with our trip, it really just helped us to understand, what these people went through. So again, they said 800,000 to 1 million were killed, but after the genocide, there was a lot of Tutsis who fled Rwanda back, I think in the 1960s, to neighboring countries, and a lot of the Tutsis came back, so a lot of the population actually was, it came back up to where it is now. So there are, a same proportion of the Tutsi people. but yeah, so again, it just really shaped us and just understanding, we met genocide survivors, as they would call them, and just their stories, but even just hearing the stories of, just people talking about how their neighbors, would have, they, if they were like the Hutu side, they have to like work for the killing of people, and so it was just really impactful just to hear all those stories. So it just helped us to do that at the start of our mission trip to kind of set the flavor and the tone of what we're doing. So, and Jaden, what's that? Okay.
Going to the Genocide Museum in Rwanda is one of the hardest things I've ever experienced in my life. Learning about the Rwandan genocide was really overwhelming and honestly hard to understand. The way people were treated, how they were treated was horrible. Neighbors were killing neighbors, people they knew and lived next to and trusted. They thought they were their friends, but turned out they weren't. Even godparents to the children, it didn't matter if they were men, women, kids, or even babies, no one was spared. One of the things that really stuck with me was hearing about how masses of people were killed in church bombings and many other horrific ways and places. The part that impacted me the most was seeing actual bones and pictures of victims. You could see how badly they were hurt and what they went through. It made everything feel very real, not just like something you hear about in history or in a book, but something that actually happened to real people in real life. It's something I don't think I'll ever forget. It made me feel really sad and really overwhelmed, but it also made me think about how important it is to choose kindness and love people like they're your own family, because the opposite can lead to something really terrible.
We're doing a lot of talking right now, but here after my segment, we're going to show some pictures of the slideshow. When we were at the Genocide Museum, though, they wouldn't let us take any pictures at all. So we have like very few kind of pictures from that segment, other than maybe like, I don't even know if we have a group picture of the house, I'm not sure, but that's why we don't have a lot of pictures to share quite yet. And then at the end, Crystal, Andre, and I are going to share just kind of like the biggest takeaway was just the healing that happened. But so we will kind of save that for the end, but know that even though this horrible thing happened, we got to witness and just be among these people who have had just amazing transformational healing in their country. And so that was probably most impactful, but we'll share more about that in a little bit. So just wanted to mention that since that's such a heavy tone, but that isn't like the tone of the whole week. So after we left Kigali, the capital city, we drove to Boneza, which is where we were going to have our the rest of our week and really our intention for our whole mission trip. It's about 3. Okay, all right, I'll back up real quick and share this handcuff story. So prior to going into the Genocide Museum, everyone had to like unload their cars, and every single suitcase baggage that was in there, hand luggage and like big suitcases, had to go through their X-ray machine. So they took security very seriously at the Genocide Museum. Well, prior to our trip, we had a show and tell at class, and I took Elijah on Monday prior to our trip, and he had a show and tell, and he wanted to take his little metal handcuffs on show and tell. I didn't think a thing of it. They were in my bag. I happened to use the same bag as we were traveling, and it was my carry-on. And as all of our luggage, and I took them out of my handbag, put them into a suitcase at the hotel, never thought a thing about it. But at the Genocide Museum, as all of our luggage is going through these metal detectors, they pick up those metal handcuffs. And they're pretty legit. Like, they look legit, but you can simply just push a button and pop them open. But they were not having it. They were so serious, and we were scared. And I was scared, and they were like asking me like, what is your occupation? And I was like, oh my gosh, this is gonna turn sideways real quick. Fortunately, they made some phone calls, got it approved by a supervisor, but it was kind of a no-nonsense circumstance there for a little bit. We were all like a little on edge, but we knew after we made it in that that was gonna be something we will probably never forget, that those little play handcuffs ended up like actually getting us into some deep water, but it did turn out okay. So that was kind of a funny side note. So once we got to Bonanza, got settled, the next morning we went and visited what they call a microfinance group, which is a group of small business owners. It was so sweet. They were having their weekly meeting at somebody's house, and as we were coming in, they were singing us in with a song, and so we all got settled. The program leader over the microfinance group, her name is Grace, and she was really impactful through our week. She's really like the biggest kind of community advocate that they have. She's in the know of everything. Our tour guide, our lead, kind of called her like she's the boss lady around there. So that's Grace. She's really a strong leader, but also had a super tender heart, which made her just really such a great leader to the people, because you could just relate to them and connect. So Grace explained more about the microfinance program to us. So she leads that. It's composed of 3,000 women in the Bonanza area, and it's mostly women, but there are some men, but it's mostly for women. And what they do through Arise for Rwanda is they give these women small business loans of like $200 to $300 so that they can start a small business. Traditional banks in the area won't lend to these people because they are in complete poverty, and so they have no collateral to be able to provide for a business loan. And when you do get a business loan, it's typical, John told us, John Kasangwa, told us that it's typical that that's like a 24% interest rate for a business loan, so super high, and that's just standard through the country. So these poor people cannot afford to take a loan through a traditional bank. So Arise Rwanda provides them financing, which kind of just saying it sounds like a small thing, but prior to this, I mean, this area of Bonanza is in complete poverty with not very many jobs, no way out of poverty, and since this microfinancing program has been set up, it's been a major source of hope for these people, because now they have jobs and they have a way to provide for their families, for their kids. They have something to do with their time, and so it's really transformed the community. They're also learning about personal finance through this program. So Arise has taught them like just about keeping a ledger and having and how to and making sure they're saving. That's like a requirement of the program, so that they can learn those different things that they hadn't been taught before. They choose their own small groups. I mentioned there's 3,000 people, but then they get down into small groups, and that's the group that we visited, of 10 to 20 people, and it just helps them to provide accountability for one another, and they keep their ledgers, and they make sure they're putting in their savings, and so they actually call them a trust group, because it's a lot of trust that they have to build in this group to maintain those. And then they have a president and an accountant for each group also, which is just, again, Arise, just putting them as the leaders in their community and developing those skills within the people. Kids also help in their parents' shops and businesses when they're not in school, so just training up the next generation. And then after, so that was great, she kind of explained the whole program to us, and And then the members of the group all introduced themselves. That was pretty typical with all of our different things that we have, that everybody introduces themselves, and so that was fun. So they told us their name, whether they were married or widowed, how many kids they had, what kinds of products that they sold, and then telling us like what they were using their profits for in their business. And a lot of the families were using, a lot of the women were using their profits towards their kids' schooling fees, and then just basic essential needs of, food, housing, that kind of thing. And then they just thanked each of us for our support in Arise Rwanda. Later, so that was kind of in the house of, we were just present during their weekly business meeting. Then we went to visit a couple of their shops where they were selling like those household essentials, rice, beans, fabric for clothing. So us ladies purchased some fabric, which was fun. And then we purchased like packs of cookies for our kids. And as we were in their little shop doing our shopping, then a whole bunch of people from the community started gathering because they wanted to see what was going on with these white people out here. And yeah, we got a lot of stares. We definitely stood out, and it is not rude in the Rwandan culture to stare. So everywhere we went, it was just, a lot of staring. So that was fun for us to just say hi and be able to connect to people. But that day we bought the cookies for our kids, and then our kids got to hand them out and share them with all the kids in the community, and that they really enjoyed that. So later in the week we went to another microfinance group and heard the president of that group share her testimony. She is a genocide survivor. Her husband and kids were killed in the genocide, and she was just so alone, and she had really been like searching out for some kind of community like what she's found in her trust group, just because she doesn't have a family. And so the trust group has become her family. And so that was just really sweet to see that she recognized that she needed that, and then that had been really provided through Arise and through these trust groups. Those ladies in particular were just craftsmen. They were just amazing baskets and bags and clothing and just beautiful goods. So they were really, really cool. So that was kind of the microfinancing, really just hope out of their poverty and just like deep gratitude to Arise Rwanda for being able to provide that opportunity that they would not have otherwise had. So that's right.
One of the things we did while in Africa was feed the kids cookies. We got surrounded by 5 of them. We bought these cookies from one of the ladies in a trust group from her shop that was set up by microfundings. The cookies that we tried were really soft.
So one of the microfunding shops that we went to was all about sewing. That was their main way they provided for them. And so we bought Wyatt some pants from them, and it's fastly become his favorite pair of shorts that he has. So we have to wash them, and that's the only way we can really get them off his body. So, but yeah, it was kind of cool. Some of the fabric that you see around in the back, that's all bought from the shops from the microfunding and that sort of stuff. So Andrea's going to show some pictures kind of this section here. So you can see just kind of, what you don't really get in that picture is the lack of people there, and then all of a sudden we started handing out cookies, and then there was dozens of people there, and so we were kind of surrounded by people at that point. After that afternoon was kind of a free afternoon, and we had the opportunity, so Oneza sits on what is called the Lake Kivu, Rwanda area, so Lake Kivu is the largest lake in Rwanda, and kind of overlook that lake and everything we do. So we had an opportunity to go swim in the afternoon. So there's some friends of Arise Rwanda, and they have a kind of a swim beach, and so we went down to their swim beach and swam for the afternoon. And so the kids are going to kind of talk about that because that was really their fun thing that they got to do, and they really wanted to do that. So we'll let the kids talk about swimming.
Okay, well, our mission house, it overlooks this massive lake. It's like bigger than Horsetooth. It's just really, really big. It looked like an ocean. I was like, wait, we're next to the ocean, but it was just a lake. So it overlooks that, and of course we had to go swimming because we're like, it's just right there. We can't just watch it all week. So we went swimming there. It was really nice. Water was cool. Had fun. And as I was going to get my stuff, because we were going to go back to the mission house, because it was up like a hill, so I happened to turn around and I saw a group of kids looking at me on like a couple hills away, and I like waved at them, and then they waved back, and then I went like, and then they did the same thing. So then we kind of like, I kept doing things and they do it back, so I kind of realized, oh, we have like a game going here. So they're not like, I can see them and like talk to them like in a normal voice. They're like yelling, so we'd like yell things at them and they'd yell it back, and it was like funny. So we did that, and then Jimmy got involved, tried to dance, almost fell down the hill, all fun stuff. And well, because we realized the game had to end at some point, so we were about to climb back up to our van, bus, I don't know what you'd call it, and the kids ran down the road to meet us, and I couldn't help myself because, yeah. But I ran over to the road, and I like threw open the gate. I was like, hi! And they hugged me, and I was like, what the heck? I've like never met you, but they were like so friendly, and it was just like, I realized like how like excited like the kids were just to meet us, because it's not like America where you have so much diversity and like there's different people, like it's just all Rwandans, and like they were just so excited to see us. So it just kind of like showed like how friendly they were, and it was really cool. So I just realized how well we were able to connect with them, and even though we couldn't speak the same language. So that might have been probably one of my most favorite like interactions throughout the trip. So, yeah.
So Andre has a video of it, so cool.
We got deep really fast.
Ah,
teaching Mike, who wasn't probably surprised about our trip. He apologized for that. The boys did. And then Elijah wouldn't stop, so it's probably drilled into their heads now.
Yeah, we took 6, 7 different ones. They thought they were safe,
So, I'm also gonna talk about the lake. It's the deepest lake they have there in Rwanda. And as soon as you keep walking, you straightly go down. And it's kind of funny because I almost went down and drank some of the water. There's also methane in the water, there's also volcanic ash and carbon dioxide or monoxide in the water.
So if you get a little bit, you were down the week with your stomach.
Yeah. So there is a couple volcanoes, and I think there's some pictures a little bit later of those. And so there's one inactive volcano and then one active volcano. The inactive one is in Rwanda, and then the active one is on the Congo side of the border. So, and those are cool things that we got to see at night from our mission house. You can see the glow of the lava coming out from the top of the volcano. So it's pretty cool. Next is high school. Yeah. So the next we went to the high school, and so one of the cool things about what Arise Rwanda has done is one of their original projects was they built a school. Started out in the preschool and then fastly moved into a high school. And so it started out as just all girls because girls don't get the same opportunity as boys in Rwanda. And so it started out as an all-girls school and then eventually moved over to co-ed. It's a boarding school, so families send their children from all around Rwanda and probably other areas from Rwanda, mainly the main area where they come from, and they stay there. It's a kind of a year-round schedule. They have a couple breaks. They have a Easter break, so it's about a month long. And then they have a summer break that's a few months long, and then they have another break around Christmas time. And so we got to tour that facilities. They have a welding shop. That wouldn't necessarily call it a shop, but a welding area. So it's a 6-month program where they can get a certificate in welding, which helps them find labor out in the market with the certification. There's a bricklaying certification, and then there's an overall general construction certificates. So those 3 certificates are all 6 months long, and again, they provide them the opportunity to gain the skills to be able to go to the market and find a decent paying job somewhere in Rwanda. Obviously, some of probably the bigger cities is where that they find that. So I had the cool opportunity to do some welding. So I kind of grabbed the stick. Fastly learned that they weren't welding goggles; they were just plain old sunglasses. And so, which sparked a real kind of a urge in me when I got home, is that we're going to purchase some welding helmets and send them back, either with the next team that goes, or we may just send them there. But they really need those goggles. And John and Kaylee may be coming sometime soon, so we might be sending them back with them. We toured the rest of the school. It was exam week, so they were all in exams, so it was kind of quiet. Not a lot of kids running around, they were all doing exams. And then we finished the tour. There was kind of a cultural area to it, which there's some pictures about. And then That's pretty general. I mean, it was a pretty big campus. Another part of their education is hospitality, so they teach the students how to be hospitable, how to, tourism, all those sorts of ideas, because that is a big thing in Rwanda is tourism, and how to give tours, how to speak to people. Public speaking is part of all of that. So it was a pretty cool program. Claude, I don't know if you remember, it was probably a year or so ago in October, Claude came and visited our church. He's the principal of Keyview Hills Academy. I got to spend a considerable amount of time with him and just kind of talk to him. And when he saw me, kind of like old homecoming, we kind of hugged, and it was a great time to embrace and really have conversations about world politics and all kinds of different things. So next we're going to talk about lunch. I'll give it to Eden or Isaiah. So
the part I'm sharing about Africa is when we went to high school. It was a bumpy 10 or 15 minute drive from the mission house. We got to the school and a teacher led us on a tour. She showed us what the kids were learning. Some were in a classroom, some were even welding or building things. After the tour, we went inside the cafeteria. There were probably 300 plus people inside. I sat down not near any of my family or the groups in Rwanda. I was nervous, mostly because there were so many people. There were about 15 people at my table, and they started to ask questions about America. Then I said what they're all studying, and they seemed happy that I was asking questions. They served me sweet potato and beans. I may have told a fib about being allergic to sweet potatoes because I don't like them. There was a big bowl on each table. So one big bowl was filled with beans and another was filled with sweet potato. They gave me a big round metal plate and just regular utensils, and I ate 50% of my food. It was really fun, and after lunch they were asking me more questions. I love going to Africa, and if it was up to me, I would go on every mission trip.
Well, we had lunch with the high schoolers, and our guide, Elvira, because the lunch tables, there's probably like 50 or so in there, and she just split up all the families. Everyone just sat them around the tables, and there's like massive room, so you're not close to anyone you know, and you're just like crammed in with these high schoolers, and you're like, this is lovely, what am I doing here? But and my group wasn't very chatty until we pulled out the Polaroid camera, which was definitely what established our relationship. So we would take a picture, and they were so confused, so the flash in their faces, they're like, what the heck just happened? Then it printed out, and I showed them it, and then the whole lunchroom like burst out from there, and it was like crazy, and everyone wanted their picture taken, and like that is the building block of me and these random high schoolers, and they finally were like, how old are you? And I'm like, I'm 14. They're like, oh, you're a little baby. And I was like, okay. But so that was fun, and just one thing about the sweet potatoes, that they're not like cut up, it's just like a whole like sweet potato, and they just like gnawed off, and it was like, I was like, oh my gosh, okay, here we go. I do clearly talk quick about the allergy and like all that, but I was not so fast of a thinker, and I ate the sweet potato. I was like, really good. So eating experience there was definitely interesting, but the overall, like the high schoolers, they're really cool, they're sweet. They speak English pretty well, which I was surprised because I was like, I can't speak any Rwandan or whatever language they speak. But yeah, it was really cool to interact with them and like see people like our age and like, well, most of our ages, but yeah, so it was really fun. But yeah. Oh yeah, and it's 600 students in one room and just that, so it's really, really loud. So yeah.
And we have some pictures of this area too. Yeah, so the beans, that's what they have breakfast, lunch, and dinner. I actually enjoyed them. So you either get potatoes, or they get potatoes or rice. It just depends what meal you're eating. And then at the end of the week on Fridays, they get a protein or a meat, typically beef because it's the cheapest of the meats there. So that was one thing they did express to me is like, how do you like the beans? And I was like, I kind of like them. And they're like, we're kind of tired of them. But it is a cheap source of food that does fill them with fiber and fill their bellies, but they are kind of tired of it. My students that I talked to were looking forward to going home and eating something other than beans.
It should be said though,
Oh, yeah.
they asked about like how often do the people get to eat meat, like in the community, and it's Christmas. So the students being able to like come and actually eat meat once a week is actually a huge privilege for them to be able to do that.
Yeah, and if you notice those yellow and black totes they were carrying in early on, that was you guys. That was everything that you donated, everything that you sent. We brought over in those yellow and black totes with us. Those were the soccer balls, the tennis balls, the stickers, the note cards, the note paper, the pins, all of that thing that we asked you to donate, that was in those totes. And so they made them, they didn't get searched, they didn't get opened. It was great. And so it was nice to be able to see that. And I wanted to make sure we caught a picture of that because that was an important part of what Stonebridge Church did other than praying for us and financially supporting us to get there. You also donated all of that stuff. So, praise the Lord.
Okay, so, after we did the preschool, or the high school, we went to one of their preschools. And that was a lot of fun, so I wrote out what I was gonna say, our visit to the preschool was one of the sweetest and most joy-filled parts of our time in Rwanda. We spent time with the afternoon class of 5 to 6-year-olds, and they were so eager to show us what they had learned. They proudly wrote their alphabet and numbers on the chalkboard. Every time one of their classmates got an answer right, the whole group would break into little chants and cheers. It was the most encouraging, uplifting, cutest thing to watch. We had the chance to serve them their snack of porridge along with a small donut, which was more like a large donut hole or a piece of really sweet fried dough. Afterward, we handed out stickers, which they absolutely loved, because what preschooler doesn't love stickers? And then we did something really special. We took photos with them using the Polaroid camera and gave them the pictures to keep to take home to show their families. So they got to go home. It's not a boarding school. That was one question we had after we had high school, which I'm sure the teachers are thankful for that, but they're not to keep those kids. They also performed a little song and dance for us, and then we returned the favor with a little song and dance of our own. Eden even taught them a song, and watching that moment of connection, despite language differences, was so special. One thing I deeply love and respect about Arise Rwanda Ministries is that they don't just provide schools and teachers, they truly love and care for each child. One story that really impacted me was about a little boy they thought might be paralyzed because he couldn't walk. Instead of just assuming or leaving it up to the family, they stepped in and took him to the doctor. Through that process, they discovered he wasn't paralyzed at all. He had simply never been taught to walk. His mom worked and didn't have the support of childcare, so he had spent much of his early life just laying on the floor. Because of Arise stepping in, he now receives physical therapy, and today he is not only walking but running. And that wasn't a one-time story. There were many examples of them noticing needs, especially medical ones, and taking action to get children the help they need. They don't just tell families what should be done, they come alongside them and make it happen. Currently, Arise Rwanda has 7 preschools, serving 319 students. Each school is staffed with both a teacher and an assistant teacher, and every single day, each class is provided with porridge to help supplement what the children may or may not be getting at home. It was such a beautiful picture of what it looks like to not only educate children, but to truly see them, care for them, and invest in their lives in a lasting way. I thought it was interesting too, being a daycare provider and a mom. They discipline children in schools. They spank them. But they use a stick. But not saying it's right or wrong, but the children are so so that was very interesting, but it was a lot of fun being there. And they're so cute. A little boy sitting in front of me would touch my arm, and he'd turn around. He kept doing that. So it was really cute. So, and Elijah has a cute little story for his parent.
One of my favorite parts was going to the school and I practiced my letters there, and when it was snack time at that school, I ate some nuts and some porridge, and I didn't really like the porridge, so to be nice, I just chugged it. I think my taste buds grew up in Rwanda.
Yeah, so that was a big thing with Elijah and Rhonda. They were pretty much buddies the whole trip, and so that was a big thing is Elijah's taste buds grew up over the week as the week went on, and the different things he would eat, and he would just say, "My taste buds are bigger today." Which was cute. So, oh, and Ethan wants to say something before we show pictures.
Just something funny. We were eating lunch at the mission house, and Elijah. So I feel bad saying this, but I was eating my lunch like a normal person, and Elijah looks at my plate. He's like, "You have baby taste buds. You're like eating your unhealthy food first, and you're like." So I was like, I don't know what I was eating. I was eating fruit. And he's like, "You have baby taste buds. I'm eating my healthy food first, but you're not." And I was like, okay.
Did you have one of the cultural events? Is that what's next?
Yes.
So I'm gonna talk about the cultural dance. So we got the high school. We felt so honored that they wanted to share traditional Rwandan dance and music with us. This was at the high school and as part of their cultural studies. They typically share this after showing visitors their cultural village that has a replica of a Rwandan king's home. But on this day, they had to split it up because they were taking exams. So we came back in the evening where they had a row of chairs lined up in the front row for us to sit in, which I was kind of scared of. And I didn't even know if it was like for us to sit in or we sit in the bleachers with the other kids, the high schools. Then very promptly, the students started playing the music and singing Out Came the Dancers, boys and girls. It was beautiful. The dancing and music. It was fun watching kids my age have fun doing something important to their culture and hearing that other students cheer and have a good time with it as well. And then they started coming towards us, and then they took us by the hand and made us all dance.
Next was, we had the opportunity to go to a widow's house. So the Rwandan government gave her a house, very dilapidated house. The team before us that was there from Loveland, they put the roof on the house. So the Rwandan government is going around and giving metal roofs to houses. One, they last a lot longer and they repel the water a little bit better, a lot better than straw houses or the cement ones. And so it was cool to kind of see that process. And so I'll let Andre really talk about that.
Yeah, so we had a great opportunity. One I was really excited for, just working in landscaping myself. I was hoping to do something where I could break a sweat and do something hard. So yeah, we helped a woman named Valentine. She was a genocide survivor and a widow. Her husband was killed in the genocide. She had one of her sons there. I believe she had another son. Yeah, and so Arise Rwanda gifted her this old house. And as Jimmy mentioned, a previous mission team put on a metal roof on there. And then we were helping put mud on the outside of the house. So what we were doing was probably maybe 100 feet away down this pretty steep hill was this hole that was being dug, that we're basically digging the dirt, which is almost like a very sandy, and just filling bags up and then just carrying them up the hill to, and then pouring them inside the house where someone inside was mixing it with some concrete and water, and that's how they would make their mud. So everyone had the opportunity to just work hard. It was great because members of the community, mainly women, come and just assist in this, just volunteering. So we were just working alongside women. It was raining quite a bit, just off and on during our trip, so the dirt itself was pretty wet. It was pretty heavy. So typically 2 to 3 shovel loads was in a bag was enough for most people to handle. Until this one woman came up who had a baby strapped to her back, and she wanted 5 shovels in there. So Jimmy and I were joking that I had to go up to 7 shovels because I couldn't let the woman with the baby on her back outdo me. So.
And then it turned to 8.
So I keep pushing it. So no, but it was great. And then Jimmy had an opportunity to slap some mud on the house, to which he quickly was relieved. The guy wasn't impressed with Jimmy's money.
He told me, no.
So, but no, yeah, it was really good. And then we had the opportunity, after working for a little bit, to sit down with Valentine. She shared her story with us and just thanked us. Rhonda was able to pray with her. So it was just a really just sweet opportunity to just serve in the community, do a little bit of hard work, and just help someone out.
So I tried to carry the sand on my head with no hands, but as soon as I got to the door, it fell. And I quickly was saved.
Yeah, so my feet were too big to really carry this, walk up the little path that we had to go up, and so I quickly changed to shoveling duty, which was fine with me. I didn't really particularly like going up the hill with bag sand. But my thought was, when I did get to go up the hills, I just put the sand on my head, because when in Africa, do what the Africans do. And it is, to me, it was a lot easier, except for if you got the bag with the hole in it, you were getting sand down your back as you were carrying up the hill. And so that's kind of what I was talking about. But we got some pictures here, we'll show you.
It was not a hill. It was not like, oh, yeah, I'm just gonna walk up the hill. You felt like you had like rock climb, like 30 pounds of sand on your back. So, Jimmy's credit was not a hill. It was like a rock climb.
So, before we left, I had mentioned that I have been to Africa 3 other times, to Kenya. This was a completely different Africa. No two Africas are the same, I think. The countries was very different. But being a widow is pretty much the same all over the world. So, after my husband passed away, I was comforted by so many people, just as we are told in 2 Corinthians. Praise be to God, our Father of compassion and the God of all comfort, who comforts us in our times of troubles, so that we can comfort others in their times of troubles, just as we ourselves have been comforted by God. Before our departure, I had worked on putting together a curriculum for the widows. I've led the Grief Share program, which is a 13-week program, and I was trying to pare it down to 2 hours and try to figure out what would apply there and what wouldn't. So I had worked on that for quite a while. I had sent it to Kaylee to have it translated so that the women would have this and be able to use it. I didn't hear back from her, but she had it, so I figured it would be done. A few days after we had arrived, I asked when we would meet with the widows. And Africa time is very different from America time. Here, I like to have a plan A, and I like to have a plan B, just in case A doesn't go through. I like my backup plan. Well, let's see, I got lost. I should never look away from my paper here. I was told that the time with the widows had not yet been set up. I was disappointed, but I just talked to God and said, this is yours. Use me for what your plan is, not mine. I did not ask any more when we would meet. I just left it to God because God never has a plan B. On Thursday, Vera told us at breakfast, this was the day before we were leaving, that we would meet with the widows that day at 1 o'clock, but we wouldn't have any time for what I had written. We would just have time to let them share their stories. Again, I whispered to God, this is yours. I revamped my material once again down to 15 minutes. I was on plan B. We went out in the rain. It happened to be pouring rain that day. And Vera had joked with me and she said, are you ready to walk? Now, Elijah and I were bookends of this. He being 6, me being 60-something. And I have 20 years on these girls, but we walked up this very steep hill, about 3/4 of a mile. I measured it on my watch, in the rain, and mud, lots of mud. And we were just marching up the hill. We got there, and there were about 30 women to meet with us. I hadn't trained for that. Crystal has been doing some great work and training. I couldn't hold a candle to her. She was back taking pictures and walking and viewing everything. We heard a few stories from the 30 women, and it ended up that I started with plan B, ended up using all of my plan A in a plan C order, which was God's plan all along. God showed me his plans are perfect. We just have to show up. These widows shared their hearts, and God used us to touch and comfort them. It was truly humbling. Thanks to all of you for praying us through this experience, and especially to those who had my name. I appreciate it.
So one of the most meaningful moments of our trip was getting to be part of Rhonda's talk with the widows in Bameza. There was something so special about not just hearing her speak, but watching how the women responded, and one man. You could see it on their faces. They were deeply moved. At different moments, they nodded in agreement, and at others, it felt like something new was clicking for them, like little moments of realization and encouragement were happening right in front of us. What really stood out to me was how touched Grace was afterward. I don't think she expected it to impact her the way it did, but you could tell it meant so much, not just to the women, but to her personally. It was one of those moments where you could feel that something bigger was happening than just words being spoken. And then there were the hugs. Every single woman, and even the one man, came up to embrace us. These weren't quick, casual hugs. They were intentional. They would wrap their arms tightly, first high, and then lower, and then step back and hold your hand in both of theirs. It felt like they were saying, without words, "Thank you, we see you, you matter to us." It was such a powerful expression of gratitude and connection. Another part that made this experience so impactful was simply getting there. Walking to and from the gathering gave us a small glimpse into their daily lives. We walked through rain and mud along the same paths they take regularly. Instead of just passing through in a vehicle, we got to slow down and really see Boneza, the homes, the people, the rhythm of life. It helped us understand even just a little bit more what their everyday looks like. That whole experience, hearing Rhonda speak, seeing the women's hearts respond, feeling their gratitude, and walking where they walk left a deep impression on me. It reminded me how powerful it is to simply show up, a ministry of presence, share truth, and walk alongside others, even for a short time.
Yeah. Sarah wants to say.
Yeah, so you might know that there was a brief time where Rhonda was not sure if she was going to be going on the mission trip kind of at the last moment with just the conflict between Iran and the U.S. and Israel, and so we were really heartbroken when she shared that with us, and praise God that He turned her heart around, and I truly believe it was for this moment, this room. I can't describe enough how just the Holy Spirit was just in that room, moving, working. There was not a dry eye in the house of just, they were so deeply impacted, and so was everyone who was listening. God was just at work, and Grace, that we've mentioned a few times, she's the one with the cornrow braids, if you've seen her in a few photos now, but she said that she really felt like Rhonda was sent to minister to these women, and that she had been praying, and just how personally impacted Grace was from what Rhonda had shared. So I just want to emphasize, as much as Rhonda thought she wasn't going to Rwanda, God always knew that He was bringing her to Rwanda to minister to those widows. It was the most powerful moment for me in the trip. It was incredible.
Yeah, the one thing that they didn't mention was there was one particular widow, and maybe you mentioned, but I didn't hear it, was that she had lost her husband the Friday before we got there. So she was literally all the way in it. And to hear the story, it was just Rhonda, Crystal, Sarah, and Jaden were the only ones there, and so the rest of us had to hear it. And just hearing that, just knew that that was the reason why Rhonda was supposed to be there. And we said it several times throughout the week. I said it several times. Kind of glad you're here. So she would say, "Gee, thanks," and we would move on. So we're sincerely, this team doesn't happen. The preparation work, which I'll kind of talk about, doesn't happen without Rhonda. And so it's kind of a prelude to what I'll talk about in a minute. So chapel and the hospital is what I'll talk about. So chapel is normally on Friday, and but we were leaving on Friday, and so logistically we were trying to figure out how we could do chapel and still lead to the airport, because there were some things that they wanted to show us on the way back to the airport from the Boneza. It just logistically wasn't going to work because chapel was at 5 o'clock, and we really had to start our journey well before 5 o'clock to get to the airport. And so it's important for them, for Americans, to really see chapel and how that works. And so they moved it up to Thursday afternoon, evening, so we went and had chapel service. They don't worship anything. They put Pentecostals to shame, I think. They just worship a whole lot different, and it's a whole lot better. It's a lot more energy, and this is kind of the high school and touring that. Obviously, being a youth guy, I had the opportunity to preach to the whole student body of the high school, so 600 and some students. John translated for me, and so for me, this was the highlight of the trip for me, being able to. Oh, sorry, John Cassandra, the president of Arise Rwanda, was the one that was able to translate for me. And so I taught on John 15, the vine and the branch, and abiding and staying connected. And so it was powerful. I'm glad that it happened. Again, like Rhonda said, there was plan A and plan B, and there's always God's plan, and he was going to figure it out. So he did, and I'm eternally grateful. John said it, was in the top
You're
three.
all 2 year old.
Okay, sorry.
John, I want to give Jimmy credit because he did an amazing job just preaching to those students. Yeah, like he was just saying, John just raved over Jimmy and just Jimmy's ability to talk to teenagers, because that's what Jimmy does well. So, and then at the end, Jimmy did give a gospel presentation, or even just, because with the vine and branches, but just kind of coming back to God, and he was, kind of called them to put their hands on their hearts and pray with him if they're feeling just a call to come back to God or come to God through Jesus. And the bad Christian that I am, I opened my eyes up during prayer, and I saw plenty of people with their hands on their hearts. So Jimmy did a great job. So I just wanted to hit something.
Go ahead.
Okay, so you'll see in the video, obviously, but, because you can't miss it, like, the way these people, like, worship is, like, a lot of, like, dancing, and it's, like, the hopping and stuff, and, on the stage or whatever, like, our guide, Elvira, she was like, come on the stage, you're not dancing for a man, or for yourself, or for fun, you're dancing for God. So that's what she told me, and that's what I, like, took away from, like, the worship, because it's, like, it's like, what we do, we're like kind of like nervous to like, oh, but they're like dancing and they're like Pentecostal times like 10, and it's like, oh wow, okay, I have like a little tweed like with like nervous here, and they're like dancing, and it's like really eye-opening. So you'll obviously see how much they're like dancing and like how excited they are about like worship and like worshiping God. So it's really like, okay, what do I do with my worship time? So it's really cool.
Yeah, and then we finished the week out Friday, as we, before we were back and packed up and headed to the airport. We visited to Keyview Hills Medical Facility. It's not currently open, but it soon will. I haven't heard an update. They were supposed to get their inspection from the Rwandan government the middle of this week to get their certificate so they could open. Their hope is to be open by the middle of May. And so we toured the hospital facility and the medical center, and you'll see pictures, and everything you see was literally built by hands. No machinery. The only machinery that was used in the building of this hospital was to bring in the big, like 500,000 kilowatt generator, and even then the truck struggled getting up the hill. Rwanda is the land of 1,000 hills, like Isaiah's shirt says. There's hills everywhere, and so yeah. There you'll see. I think I labeled most of the pictures, so you kind of understood what each room was. And I'll kind of talk about what the future looks like after we see the pictures. You must stay connected. When you feel tired, you stay connected. When you feel like giving up, you stay connected. Stay connected. People are always watching your life. Couldn't tell if there was more. Is there any more after that? That's it? Okay. So, you saw what our trip looked like. Yeah. Well, does anybody have final thoughts that they want to say before we close out? I'll just go. So you've seen what our trip looked like. There's some parts that we left out intentionally. We went on a safari. That was the one fun thing we got to do at the beginning of our trip. We saw 3 of the big 5. Multiple hotel changes at the beginning of our trip, just based on the time that we got there and that sort of thing. And so, but what I really want to say, and I can't say it any different than just simply thank you. Thank you for your prayers. Thank you for donating, not only monetarily, but the things from Amazon and the other things. Thank you for your prayers. They were all felt throughout the week. There was plenty of times where we were overwhelmed and there was team, we felt those prayers. But we want to say as a team, simply thank you. Because without the church, without everybody in this room and everybody else in the church body, a trip like this, the first inaugural international mission trip from Stonebridge, doesn't happen without all of you. And we simply can't say thank you enough. And so, I know we're a little bit low on time, and maybe you can find us throughout the weeks to ask us questions if you have them, but I would be remiss if I didn't give an opportunity, at least give you the opportunity to ask a question or two. So if not, we can simply move on. What I alluded to earlier is the hospital. So that's a big piece of their next puzzle, and how it's going to benefit the people of Rwanda. So they've had a couple day clinics that they've been able to operate, and every time they open up the clinic to service the people, they see thousands show up, and they can't get to everybody. And so we will go again in March of 2028. It's not a set in stone yet, but that's kind of when I've thought about planning the next one and going towards the next one. And so if you ideally, if what you saw today or what you heard today really entices you, you can talk to me, talk to anybody on the team. And there'll be more information that comes out in the future about what we're gonna do in the future. A large part of it will have to do with that hospital, and we have quite a few nurses in our body, and so I would love to do something along that line. And so yeah, that's kind of where we're at. And it was an amazing trip. It was life-changing. It was a lot nicer than I thought it was going to be. So probably the expectations, usually set your expectations low, you're going to be thoroughly enthralled every time. So my expectations were super low, and so I was blown away. So I'm going to invite Andrew up. He wants to say a few words, and look forward to what he has to say.
Thank you, Jamie. Thank you, team. Well, it looks comfy. No, I'm good. I'll stand. But I'm thrilled that we got to send a team to do this. God has commanded us through His Word to go into all the nations and spread the gospel. And they said, yes, we will go. And you said, yes, we will send you. So thank you for being obedient. Thank you for being obedient. This is an important first step for Stonebridge Church, to venture into the world of international missions. Speaking from past church experience, this doesn't just happen by accident. It has to be intentional. And I told you this morning, I've been telling you for the past few weeks, that I think God is moving on in Stonebridge to get us to get outside these four walls, to get outside Colorado, to get outside the U.S., and start connecting with other people that God has created. God didn't create just Americans. There is way more out there for us to connect with. There's way more to God than just what we see here. So I would like us to start experiencing that, and these guys did it. Their lives are going to be changed. I've met so many people that have never been on a mission trip before. They've never experienced what God has outside these four walls sometimes. And Stonebridge Church is going to change because of this. Okay? So yes, ask these folks questions. Get to know them better and hear more of their stories on what changed and on what they experienced, on what more of God's creation and God's people that they got to see and experience and bring back. One of the things I loved that was said most, Crystal, when you said ministry of presence, being there is so important. So I love you guys. Thank you for serving in this capacity. Thank you, church, for sending them and making this possible. And I look forward to the next time. Thanks for coming out.